Okay then. So today we're going to talk about preparing for job interviews. And I'm hoping that in a short time, many of you are going to be having job interviews. And there's another thing that you need to know, which is that the law firms in Spain, a lot of the time now, they're doing all the interview or part of the interview in English. And so all the things that you've learnt about doing a job interview in Spanish, now you have to think about doing those interviews in English. So all of us know that you have to prepare for interviews, and we've all thought about what to wear, how to do our hair, how to sit, make sure our shoes are clean, things like that. But there's another part of it which is a bit more difficult, which is how should I talk at the interview? How do I answer those questions that I know they're going to ask me? And how can I prepare that part of it? And especially how can I prepare that part of it in English? So what we need to know is that there are a lot of questions that they always ask you. Why did you apply for this position? What area of law interests you most? Why did you study law or law and economics? Which part of your degree interested you most? Those types of questions. You should be ready for those. Think of something that's likely to be relevant for the job you're applying for, and think of something that makes you sound more useful to the law firm. And then the other rather typical everyday questions: would you mind traveling? I'm afraid the answer's got to be no, I wouldn't mind traveling. I'd like to travel. Tell me what you know about this company. Well, of course, you need to do a bit of research before you go to the interview and find out a few things about the company that can give you a good answer to that question. And can you meet deadlines? That is, can you finish your work on time? This is extremely important in any job, but especially in the high pace of law firms. And so what you need to do is show some evidence that you can meet deadlines. So, for example, it would be a good opportunity to talk about your degree project, your trabajo fin de grado, practicum, because that's where you had to learn to work to a deadline and to finish things on time and to organize your work so that everything was ready when they said. And then there are the difficult questions. These questions are really difficult. What kind of person are you? This is not a moment for introspection. What is the meaning of life? What am I really like? What's at the bottom of my heart? Because they don't want to know about that. It's not your spiritual director, okay? When they say, what kind of person are you? What they mean is, what kind of person is this going to be like to work in our law firm? Is it going to be a hardworking person, a kind person, an enthusiastic person, an analytical person? Something about you that makes you relevant to them. And then we have those questions like, what is your greatest strength? Maybe you're very hardworking. What is your greatest weakness? That's a hard one. It's not the moment to say that you went to the carpa and drank 15 pints of beer, because that doesn't impress anybody. You have to think of a weakness that is typical among people in your profession and that is not too bad, and above all, a weakness that you yourself have recognized and that you're trying to deal with. So if your weakness is that you're likely to get stressed out before exams, what you have to say is that you've learned to cope with that and you've developed some strategies for dealing with it. How about tell me about a situation which you had to overcome a difficulty? That's an interesting one, isn't it? You've recently done your degree project. At the same time, you're also working under very difficult circumstances at the moment. So I'm sure you can think of something concrete, a real example, when you had to overcome a difficulty. Okay. The funny questions. The first one of these is a way of trying to find out if you're a quick thinker, and also some more about your personality. So they might ask you, what would you do if one of your colleagues always arrived late and left early? You have to show that you're a person who's aware of the implications of what you might say, who might be diplomatic, helpful at the same time with a feeling for justice. And then the funniest one of all, if you were an animal, what would you be? I love this one. What's the right answer? Well, obviously, nobody wants you to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a penguin or a butterfly. They want people who are useful animals. They may want an animal that can work in a team, like a horse or an elephant. They may want an animal that's got stamina. They may want an animal that's analytical, like an eagle. But it's not very likely that they want an animal that is a bit strange, right? So think carefully about the animal. They are trying to find out about your personality with that question. All right, so let's see some answers that people gave. Look at this one. Tell me about your experience. I think it's quite a good answer. It's concrete, it gives details, and it mentions things that you've learned, like marketing, accounting, and so on. And it tries to link that experience also with some qualities that may be useful across a whole range of businesses, like flexibility and versatility. What about this one? This is similar to you, somebody who's still studying. Why is it good? Because that person is mentioning the summer work that they did and also tries to be quite concrete, saying exactly what they did in that law firm. Not just, well, I talked to clients and I looked at some papers. No, no, it says filing applications at the court or the company's house, yeah, negotiating commercial contracts, that sort of thing, being more concrete. And at the same time, this person also mentions voluntary work, and I think that's important. Certainly, it shows that you didn't just spend the summer lying on a beach. It shows that you're organized, that you're concerned about other people, you can work in a team. Things like that can make a very good impression on your future employer. And then this one is a good answer too. What's your greatest strength? I'm definitely a team player. But don't just say that, give some examples. It's a good idea to give examples. And for example, now you've just been finishing your degree project, you can talk about how you managed to work with the other members of your team on that, what you did when there was a problem, how you solved that, how you divided up the work. All those things are pretty useful. This is a good one. What is your biggest weakness? Well, as I said, please don't mention, uh, well, you can imagine what you're not supposed to mention, right? Don't mention things that are major character flaws. Don't say, I can't get up in the morning, okay? What you should say is that you found something difficult, but you've learned how to do it. So I found it difficult to work in a team, but I've learned how to get along with other people better now. When I was younger, it was hard for me to cope with stress, but in my summer internship, we worked to deadlines all the time, and I've learned to control my reactions. These are good ways of going about that. Now, what about the other types of answer? Overcoming a difficulty. Well, last year you had to do the practicum or the degree project. Found it really hard to search for relevant laws, but over the weeks I became very efficient at that. Or maybe you just had to take over the department because everybody was ill. It was very stressful at first, but it made you learn how to react quickly. These are good answers, I think. These are not good answers. Why did you leave your last job? I hated it. The other staff were very lazy and the boss didn't like me. What's wrong with that? Well, it makes you sound like a victim. You're the sort of person who's always the victim. Nobody wants to work with people like that. It was boring. I liked it at first, but after a few months, I found it didn't present me with any new challenges. Careful with that. It might have been boring, but then many jobs have elements of routine, and the one you're applying for will have that too. This tells you more about yourself than you might admit. You're somebody who needs lots of stimuli, excitement, fun. No, no, jobs are about hard work. Keep away from this kind of thing and never say it was boring. I was exploited. They made me work until 9 o'clock and on weekends. It was just slave labor. Sorry. Welcome to the real world. A lot of law firms do that. Again, don't make yourself seem work shy and don't make yourself seem like a victim. So how could you answer those questions? This is a nice way of going around it. I found it really interesting to be part of a large law firm, but I would like to apply the knowledge I've gained in a different environment. So now I would like to gain experience in the corporate sector. Notice you haven't said anything negative about the firm you worked for. You haven't said it was boring. You haven't said you were treated badly. But what you've said is you've got enough experience of that and now you want to move on and use that somewhere else. That's a good way to go around that question. Last point. Do you have any questions you would like to ask me? Sometimes we've prepared the interview really well, and then they say, "Oh, now ask me a question," and you don't know what to say. So these are reasonable questions, but it's even better if you try to research the company and notice something about them. So if the company is just expanding into a new market, maybe they've just opened a branch in Finland, you can say, I see you're moving to Finland. Is there any chance of a secondment there? Or you can mention that you have some experience abroad and that you speak English and that you would like to be able to do that in the future. Okay. So prepare a few questions for the interviewer. And then just to conclude, I think this is what it comes down to. To be successful in a job interview, you have to make a match between what you have to offer, that's you, your skills, your qualifications, your experience, and what the job actually requires. So you have to kind of draw a map between those things so that you can prove, and I mean prove, to the interviewer that you're the ideal person for that job.